If you're struggling for how to shop for makeup, whether to get certain items at the drugstore or high end, what to look for in formulas, what are the ingredients, what does all of this mean, this video is for you. If you're new to my channel, my name is Marlena and I've been a cosmetic product developer and brand owner for over 14 years. Today, I want to give you some tips on how to read the ingredients in your makeup and how to know which products you should spend more money on and which ones you should save it. Now, before I get into the first product, if you all want a video kind of similar to this where we talk in general about how to shop like a pro, check out this video here, You're Wasting Your Money. But today's video, I'm going to get into the nitty gritty. We're going to go over ingredients, looking at where products are made, what does all of that mean? So the first product that you should save your money on is mascaras. Now, the reason I say this is because these formulas are not super complicated to make and the packaging really is pretty simple. I have two options here that we're going to compare today. I have the Chanel mascara and I have the L'Oreal Voluminous Carbon Black. So what I like to do when I'm buying makeup is go to Sephora or Ulta and I click on the ingredient tab. A lot of people don't do this because they just see the branding, they see the packaging like, oh, that's pretty, that has good reviews, I'm gonna buy that. But I like to study the ingredients a little bit to see what is actually in here. So when I click on the L'Oreal Voluminous one, we have water, which is the first one. We have paraffin, which is a wax. Then we have cyclomethicone, that is a silicone. Anything ending in O-N-E, dimethicone, methicone, trimethicone, cyclomethicone, these are all silicones. That's kind of what you see in your face primers that gives it slip, it creates a nice barrier. And then you have stearic acid, which is a conditioning agent. That's a common ingredient that's found in shea butter and cocoa butter. So that gives you that nice creamy feeling. And then after that, you have beeswax, which is a wax. So you have a couple different types of wax. You have a silicone in there, you have some water. When I go to the Chanel one, this one has similar base ingredients. It starts with water, synthetic beeswax, paraffin, stearic acid, acacia, which both of them have acacia, and I wasn't familiar with that, so I looked it up. And acacia, it's an acacia gum, is a natural stabilizer and thickener in cosmetics. It's used in mascaras, skin lotions, hair products, etc. So anytime if you all are confused about a certain ingredient, just Google search it. A really reputable source that I like to refer to is Paula's Choice. She has a lot of great ingredients talking about the safety of them, what they're used for in cosmetics. So as you can see from the formula base, these have a very similar formula from L'Oreal to the Chanel. Now the cost of these two, the L'Oreal one is $10.99 on Ulta and the Chanel one is $38. So whew, that's almost 4 times the difference. And when I look at the packaging, they're both pretty similar. There's nothing out of the ordinary. There's nothing really custom on here. It's basically a tube. So that's why I say in this category, if you are looking to specifically save money in your makeup shopping, get a drugstore version because they're made a lot of times at similar factories, the similar ingredients. The packaging really isn't anything that costs a lot extra, so you're really paying for the name most of the time. And I looked at the origin of manufacturing because for me that's really important in that I know that one manufacturer, one country is going to be more expensive than the other. So L'Oreal Voluminous is made in the USA, so fair labor laws are in effect. That means that it's going to be pretty mid-level pay. And then the Chanel one I looked up and it said made in France, and that's going to be just a little bit more expensive than labor in the US. So really, in my opinion, what you're paying for is the Chanel name versus some fancy packaging or the product itself. So honestly, I would say save some money and go for the drugstore version. The next product category I have is lipsticks. And I talked about this in my previous video as well, but I have two to compare today. I have the L'Oreal Color Riche and then I have the Chanel lipstick. And I'm not bashing Chanel, you guys. You know that I love Chanel. Like, I love me some Chanel, obviously, because I own it, I wear it. But I was interested in seeing where are these made? What are the ingredient decks? So L'Oreal lipstick, I'm on the Ulta site. First off, it has lanolin oil, it has some sesame seed oil, it has some waxes in there, lanolin wax, beeswax, a little bit of fragrance. So a lot of oils and waxes basically. When I go to the Chanel one, it's the same thing, but I have a different type of wax and oil. So it has synthetic wax in there, it has hydrogenated castor oil and also hydrogenated coconut oil. So again, the base formula, even though they're different ingredients used, they are the same things. It's oils and waxes. price. When I compare the two, I was actually kind of surprised because the one difference as I go further down the list is I see that the Chanel one has talc in there, which is a less expensive ingredient than the L'Oreal one, which the powder that they're using is silica. And they're also using synthetic fluorphlagopite is synthetic mica. It is actually a little bit more expensive because it's a synthetic mica. It's actually more preferred because of the issues around mining natural mica. So using this synthetic one, in my opinion, from a moral standpoint, is a little bit better, but it is a little bit more expensive. So I was kind of surprised in that. I know it's further down the ingredient list, so it's not huge quantities or whatever, but I'm curious to see how L'Oreal, which is a $10.99 lipstick, is using a more expensive ingredient versus talc in the Chanel one. And the price of this lipstick, hold on, $45. Now let's compare the packaging. Here's the two lipsticks. They both are a square component. They both have the embossed label on here. So there's really nothing out of the ordinary in the packaging from these two that would increase cost of that lipstick a lot. Now, when I go to a different brand, I've talked about packaging before because packaging does matter. I will say that there are some that cost more than others. You have the YSL one, something like this, where there's debossed logo in there. There's the color in there. That is actually really expensive. So when I see a high price point on something like this, in my mind, I see it's worth it because that packaging is very, very customized. The other packaging, though, from a drugstore brand that I thought was unique, and I know this may not be custom or not, but it's still pretty cool, is the Milani ones. You guys seen these where it's this texture out here? I've not seen this with any other brand. To me, that looks very customized, even though it's a drugstore lipstick. So there are ways to do some really cool packaging without having to spend out the behind on customization. So let's go back to these two. It's a square, has a cap, really not that much different in packaging. So what you are paying for between these two, considering that the base formulas are pretty similar, is going to be the Chanel name. Now I looked up where these are manufactured. The Chanel one is made in France, and the L'Oreal one, I believe, is made in the USA. So again, the labor cost may be just a little bit more, but not no $48 versus $10. Next product we have that you can save money on and go to the drugstore are your eyeliners. I talked about this in my previous video as well, but after that video, guys, I went shopping and I was like, aha, I found this. So these both, I have the Urban Decay 24/7 eyeliner. These are great. I love these. I've used these for many years, but I just bought the Maybelline Tattoo Studio one that looks like this. They both are made in Germany. They are made at the exact same manufacturer. Now, let's look at the ingredient deck of it. So the first ingredient on the Urban Decay one is isododecane. You'll see this a lot actually in liquid lips. Every time I go to buy a liquid lip, you'll see isododecane. It's a very common ingredient in cosmetics. The definition of this, because I don't want to mess it up, it is a colorless liquid found in cosmetics, hair care, skincare products. The benefit of it is trapping moisture and it keeps formulations soft and helps them glide more easily. So you'll see this really high up in the ingredient deck in liquid lips because liquid lips can be very drying. So to counteract that, they add isododecane to help it glide, be a little bit softer in texture. So you'll see that in this eyeliner as well. So isododecane is the first one. Cyclopentasiloxane, that is a silicone, because remember ending OXANE, oxane, that is a silicone. You have dimethicone, which is another silicone. You have synthetic wax. So now let's look at the Maybelline one. I was going to try to read on the back of this box. This is really small. So the first ingredient is dimethicone. It's a silicone. Trimethylsiloxysilicate. I looked that up and that improves the texture of the skin. It forms a silky smooth film. So that's probably what helps it glide a little bit more easily because these are marketed as gel eyeliners. So if you like gel liners, check these out. I'll show you in a minute the texture of it. You have some more dimethicone. You have copolymers, which help elasticity. It helps it bend and glide on the skin. You'll see that a lot in liquid eyeliners as well. Copolymers, it helps what gives it flex and bend. And then you have nylon 12, which is in both formulas, and that's a powder substance used as an absorbent and texture enhancer. So you'll see it in a minute in the powder stuff. It's talc, mica, silica, and then nylon 12. It's basically a powder. So when I look at the two ingredient decks, they're not too far off, but let's check the texture because I want to show you guys the actual difference because we could sit here and geek out on ingredients all day, but at the end of the day, you're like, how does this feel? Is it pigmented? How does it glide? Okay, so I have the Urban Decay 24/7. This is the black color. So it's really pigmented. Do you see how smooth that glides? You have a little bit of time to buff it out if you want. So it's just a nice creamy formula. Now the Maybelline one, this is also a gliding formula, different color, but let's look at that. Very pigmented also, glides really well. And it also kind of blends out a little bit. it. When I feel these two eyeliners side by side without even looking at the ingredient deck, they feel exactly the same to me. If you were to hide the label on these and have me pick which formula is which, I honestly could not even tell. The price of this, the Maybelline one, is $9.99. It's like, just say $10. Why do we keep doing this $9.99? Okay, and then the Urban Decay one is $25. So this is 2.5 times this one. They're made at the same factory, very comparable formulas. They feel exactly the same to me. So again, if you want to save some money, I definitely recommend checking out some drugstore ones. I think they're both great formulas, but at the end of the day, if you want to save money, get the drugstore so you can use that money in a different category such as foundations. The next category we have is pressed powders. Now, I wanted to compare these two because you guys know I love my Fenty Beauty powder. I've used it multiple times, but this one has gone viral, the Maybelline Superstay 24 Hours. Excuse that it looks like crap. My daughter decided to carve in my powder that I just bought. Anyways, I pulled up the ingredient deck of both of these because I wanted to see, okay, what all is in here. First ingredient in both of these is going to be talc. It's not my favorite, so I'm going to start looking for talc-free powders. I'll tell you why in another video, but both of them have talc. The Maybelline Superstay has dimethicone, which is a silicone. You have zinc stearate, which is an anti-caking agent. I'm not a chemist, but I'm wondering if they're using that because dimethicone is so high up the list. So it's like powder and then the silicone. You have silica, which is a really fine powder. You know the Makeup Forever HD powder, that really white one that was super popular 10 years ago? That is pretty much straight up silica. It's a powder, but it's very, very white, gives a flashback. So usually it's not used on its own. It's usually mixed with talc, mica, cornstarch, nylon 12, things like that. And then cornstarch is the next one. So you have pretty much a bunch of mixture of powders in this one with a silicone. When I look at the Fenty one, same thing, but it has talc, nylon 12, synthetic fluorphlagopite, which that is a synthetic mica. That is actually a little bit more expensive because it's synthetic. It's not a natural mica, which is good in my opinion because that gets around the labor issues that can sometimes happen with mining of mica. You have kaolin, which is basically a clay powder. And then down the list, you have dimethicone and then zinc stearate again. So you have anti-caking agents and all of that. So the formulas are fairly similar, except the Fenty one has the synthetic mica in there and the kaolin. This one has mainly talc. They're both pretty similar ingredient decks, but what you're mainly paying for is the Fenty one has obviously a much nicer packaging. So for me, I like this one more because I like the formula, I like the packaging, I think it's very sleek, and it comes in a ton of different colors. The Fenty one comes in 40 plus colors. The Maybelline one, I think it's only 10. So me personally, I tend to buy a little bit more high end of the pressed powders, but I think if you can find a color that matches you, then I would say definitely get the drugstore version because it's going to be pretty comparable. There's not a lot of difference in the formula itself. Sure, the packaging is not going to be as nice. Like this is pretty like basic plastic. I think it's kind of flimsy. It's going to break a little bit, but if you don't care about that and you really just want a good product, you want to save money, I think it is worth getting the drugstore version of the pressed powder. The next category I have is lip liners. So this kind of goes along with the eyeliners. A lot of them are made at the same places, but I have some tea to kind of serve up on this one.
I need tea.
As I was doing some research, I was like, let me look at where these both are made. So you all know that I love the Makeup Forever ones. I use these a lot, not because I think I want to spend $20+ on a lip liner, knowing damn well that it does not. It costs less than $2 to make this, you guys. I hate spending the money on that, but the colors are great. I can't find good colors in drugstore versions, but if I did, I'm telling you, I get more drugstore ones. But the formula that a lot of people talk about that they really like is the NYX Suede ones. But as I was doing some research with these, I noticed they are made from the different factories, the same product. I bought these at the exact same time. So let's start with the ingredient deck of the Makeup Forever one. The first one is mica. We know that's a powder. It's used in a lot of pressed powders and things, so it's in the pencil. You have dimethicone, which is a silicone. Then you have some microcrystalline waxes, synthetic wax, all of that. So basically you have a powder, you have a silicone, you have some waxes that are gonna help it glide. The country this is made in is the Czech Republic, which is interesting because I don't see a lot of products made there. So let me show you guys the texture of this. So it's a little bit dry, but it's not harsh at all. It's like kind of a traditional old school wooden pencil. So that's kind of the texture of that one. Now the NYX one, before we get into the tea, I have two that both say NYX Suede. Let me show you the packaging of these guys. They're printed differently. Can you guys see? So this says NYX Suede is under here. This one says NYX Suede right here. So the top one here is the one that that's made in Italy. Again, I bought these at the same time. This bottom one here that looks like this is made in Mexico. Now, I just literally opened this right before I got on camera because I wanted to try the texture. So this is the one made in Mexico. Now, I'm not bashing Mexico at all, you guys. I think it's a beautiful country and all that. This has nothing to do with the country itself. I'm just talking about behind the scenes. There are several countries that are known for creating cosmetics. There's China, there's US, there's Italy, France has some manufacturers as well, and then there's Canada. Those are kind of the big top players. Korea is starting to come in a little bit too. I don't see a lot of makeup made in Mexico at all. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. It's made in Mexico. But I was like, let me try it. I've heard it has good reviews. Do you guys see there's a white cast on that? This is not a white lip liner. What the heck is that? I've never seen that before. When you go to draw it on, look, it's that dark color, but around it is white. I don't feel comfortable putting this on my lips because I'm not sure why it's white around the edge like that. And why did they switch their formula to Italy? These are the same NYX Suede. I bought them at the same time. What's going on here? So here's the texture. I mean, it has a similar feeling to this one. So texture wise, it's not really different from the Makeup Forever one. This one's just a little bit drier, but this one is $5, I believe. And the Makeup Forever one is like $22. That's a really big price difference, you guys. $4 to $22. That's almost 6 times the cost, 5.5 times the cost. Okay, let's go over the one made in Italy. So this one didn't have the white cast on there. And then when I go to draw it, this one to me feels a little bit more creamy. It's not quite as dry as this one here that was made in Mexico. So I do prefer this formula a little bit more. This to me feels more comparable to the Makeup Forever one. So it's up to you all. If you want to spend money on the Makeup Forever lip liners or MAC or whatever, there's some really great ones that are high end. If you think it's worth spending $22, spend your money on it. I do. I love these lip liners, but I do feel like the NYX ones are actually pretty good for $4. But when you go shopping, you guys, make sure it's the one that says made in Italy. It has nothing to do with liking Italy more than Mexico or liking one more than the other. I don't care, but I'm just saying I'm really a little bit nervous about why this has a white cast on that and it's pretty dry, whereas the Italy formula to me feels a little bit nicer. So if you're gonna get the NYX ones, you wanna save some money, make sure you look at the label and see that it's made in Italy because those are better. So that is my shopping tips like a pro, you guys. When I go to shop, make sure that you're looking at your ingredient deck. Look to see where it's made. I know a lot of people don't talk about that, but like I said, the top players, Italy and France, usually are at the top. Those are usually the most expensive. They're known for doing a lot of luxury products. Pretty much anywhere in general in Europe tends to be a bit more expensive. Then you have right under that is the US and also Canada. Those are kind of your mid-level. Then you have Korea, which is coming up with really great products. The quality is pretty good from things coming out of Korea. Their labor costs are a little bit less, so it's probably third in line as far as labor. And then the least expensive is China, which for a variety of reasons we'll talk about in another video. So there's your main players in there. So for me, I like to know where it's made because if I see it's made in China and they're charging me luxury prices for that, I'm like, you're trying to rip me off because I know that that doesn't cost as much to make there versus made in, say, France or Italy, just because of cost of labor. So we'll talk about that more in another video. So hopefully that gives you some great tips on how to shop like a pro. For me personally, when I'm shopping, I like to look at the ingredients and I like to look at where it is made. That tells me a lot of the quality of that product. And then again, the texture, the pigmentation, all of those things you can look up when you search other people's reviews. If they're honest, because that's another video we'll talk about later, is how some companies will be shady and not post full reviews, only the positive ones. But most people out there will get their reviews and say what they like or dislike. So always read the reviews on a product. Don't just watch YouTube or all of that. Do well thought research before you buy a product because that's your hard-earned money that you are spending. So anyways, you guys, stay happy and healthy like always. Have fun with your makeup and I will talk to you soon. Bye.